Myra stepped off the shuttle and felt the soft hum of the space station beneath her feet. The station floated silently above a pale blue planet, its surface swirling with clouds and oceans. She had seen pictures of the place before, but nothing could compare to standing there in person. Its tall towers gleamed in the artificial light, and every corridor seemed polished and perfect. Myra adjusted her bag over her shoulder and took a deep breath. She was here on a mission to study the rare cosmic phenomenon near the planet, but her eyes could not resist wandering over the station's beauty. The air smelled faintly of metal and warm lights, a clean scent that reminded her of her childhood school laboratories. She walked down the main hall, observing the walls that shimmered like silver, dotted with tiny lights that twinkled like stars. People passed by, some in crisp uniforms, others in casual clothes, but none seemed to notice her the way she noticed them. She liked it that way. Being unnoticed made it easier to watch, to listen, to understand. Myra had heard about the gilded mirror room before she arrived. It was the oldest part of the station, designed centuries ago to make visitors feel small in the vastness of the universe. Gold-trimmed mirrors covered the walls from floor to ceiling, reflecting every light, every movement, creating a sense that the room was larger than it truly was. Myra felt a quiet excitement as she thought about seeing it for herself. Her curiosity guided her steps through twisting corridors and elevators until finally, a heavy golden door appeared before her. She paused, running her fingers along the intricate patterns carved into its surface. The door opened smoothly, as if expecting her, and she stepped inside. The room took her breath away. Light bounced off the mirrors in endless reflections, multiplying everything she saw. It was like stepping into a dream where she could see herself from every angle. Myra took slow steps forward, careful not to touch the polished surfaces. She loved the silence, the feeling that this place existed outside of time. Then, she saw him. Across the room, reflected in one of the mirrors, was a young man adjusting some panels on the wall. He did not notice her at first, focused on his work. But when he turned slightly, their eyes met through the reflections. Myra felt a strange flutter in her chest. There was nothing unusual about him. He was ordinary, with dark hair and gentle features, but there was something in the way he moved, careful and thoughtful, that drew her attention. The young man, whose name she would later learn was Terran, paused as if sensing her gaze. His eyes scanned the room and landed on her in the mirror's reflection. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply looked at each other, two strangers connected by the strange magic of reflections. Myra wondered if he felt the same spark she did, a quiet pull towards someone who existed in a place both strange and beautiful. Shaking herself out of the moment, Myra stepped back and took a slow breath. She reminded herself why she was here. The mission was important. Data about the cosmic phenomenon could change the understanding of space travel. Yet, even as she thought about work, she could not ignore the pull she felt toward Terran. The mirrors seemed to echo her thoughts, showing countless reflections of herself, and somehow, she imagined them standing beside him. She wandered slowly through the room, her fingers lightly brushing the edges of the mirrors, careful not to leave fingerprints. Each reflection seemed to tell a story, not just of the people who had walked here before, but also of the life she might lead if she let herself feel more than duty and curiosity. Myra wondered if the station had always drawn people together in this way, if others had felt the quiet longing that now stirred in her chest. After a few minutes, Terran returned to his work, adjusting the panels and checking readings. Myra turned toward the door but stopped halfway, glancing back. The mirror reflected him again, and she realized that the moment had already changed her. She had arrived expecting only data, experiments, and work, but she had discovered something new, a sense of connection, a small warmth that made her heart race in the quiet of the gilded room. Finally, she stepped out, careful not to rush. Outside, the hallways were brighter, but somehow the magic of the gilded mirror room stayed with her. She walked back toward her quarters with a mind buzzing with thoughts of the mission, of the station's beauty, and of the stranger whose eyes had met hers through the mirrors. Myra had arrived expecting a scientific adventure, but she was beginning to realize that some adventures were not written in charts or numbers. Some adventures, she thought with a small, quiet smile, started in reflections, in the quiet longing that made her wonder what might happen next. The next morning, Myra found herself wandering the station again, though her mind kept returning to the gilded mirror room. The corridors were quiet, except for the gentle hum of machinery and the occasional soft footsteps of other visitors. She had finished her initial scans of the cosmic phenomenon, and a strange sense of freedom allowed her to explore the station without the pressure of work. As she turned a corner near the station's gardens, she almost bumped into someone. "Oh, I'm sorry," Myra said, stepping back quickly. "No, it's my fault," the man replied with a warm smile. It was Terran, the same young man from the mirror room. His dark eyes held a flicker of recognition. "You were in the gilded mirror room yesterday, right?" Myra nodded, feeling her cheeks warm. "Yes. It's beautiful in a way I can't describe." She hesitated for a moment before asking, "Do you work here often?" Terran chuckled softly. "Yes, I help maintain the station's systems. It keeps me busy, but I like it." "And you?" "You're not from here, I can tell." "I'm a scientist," Myra replied. "I came to study the planet and the cosmic phenomenon near it. But I find myself exploring the station more than studying anything else." She smiled, and Terran returned the smile, and for a moment, the station felt smaller, cozier. They walked together toward the gardens, and Myra noticed how carefully Terran moved, how he seemed to pay attention to even the smallest details, the way a panel fit into the wall, the alignment of a light above the plants. It made her curious about him. "Do you ever get bored of this place?" she asked. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But there's always something new to notice. Even small things can surprise you if you look closely." He paused, glancing at her. "I think that's true for people, too." Myra felt a flutter in her chest. His words were simple, but they carried a depth she hadn't expected. They walked in silence for a few moments, enjoying the quiet hum of the station and the soft glow of the artificial sunlight streaming through the garden's glass panels. The plants were unfamiliar, strange species from different planets, and the colors seemed brighter than any she had seen before. "Do you like exploring?" Terran asked suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. "I do," Myra replied. "I like discovering things, places, ideas, even people. It makes me feel alive." He nodded thoughtfully. "I feel the same. Sometimes, I wonder if I notice too much, or if noticing everything is what makes life interesting." His gaze drifted toward a small fountain in the center of the garden, and Myra followed his eyes. The water sparkled as it fell, reflecting tiny bits of light like stars. They found a quiet bench nearby and sat down. Myra felt at ease, as if she had known him longer than a day. "You know," she said softly, "yesterday, when I saw you in the mirror room, I felt something strange. Like the mirrors connected us in a way I didn't expect." Terran's eyes lit up with recognition. "I felt it too," he admitted. "It was as if the room wanted us to notice each other, even if we didn't know why." I've seen people come and go, but something about that moment felt different. Myra smiled. The warmth in her chest grew, and for the first time since arriving, she felt a sense of possibility beyond her work. Do you think that happens often? People noticing each other in quiet ways. I think it does, Taryn said quietly. Sometimes, you meet someone, and you don't understand why at first. But little by little, it becomes clear. They spoke for hours, sharing stories about their lives, their dreams, and the little things that brought them joy. Myra learned that Taryn loved fixing things, not just because it was his job, but because it made him feel useful, like he was keeping the station alive. Taryn learned that Myra loved studying the stars, not just for knowledge, but because it made her feel connected to something bigger than herself. As the artificial evening lights began to glow, casting soft golds and blues across the garden, Myra realized how much she had enjoyed the day. The connection she felt with Taryn was quiet but strong, like the pull of gravity that held planets in orbit. She found herself hoping that tomorrow, and the day after, she could walk these same paths with him again. When it was time to leave, Taryn walked her back toward the corridors. I hope we meet again soon, he said, stopping at a corner where their paths would separate. I hope so too, Myra replied, her heart light but her mind buzzing with thoughts. She watched him walk away, his figure reflected in the smooth panels of the walls. She thought of the gilded mirror room, of their first silent meeting there, and she smiled. Somehow, she knew that this was only the beginning. As Myra returned to her quarters, she felt a strange excitement she had never expected when she first arrived. The station, the planet, even the mission seemed brighter, warmer, more alive. And somewhere, she thought, in the quiet reflection of mirrors and gardens, a new story was beginning, one that neither science nor distance could define, but that was already shaping her heart. The next day, Myra woke with a sense of quiet excitement. She thought of Taryn as she prepared her equipment for the mission. But before heading to the observation deck, she decided to visit the gilded mirror room once again. The memory of their first meeting lingered in her mind, and she felt drawn to the golden reflections as if they held a secret she was meant to discover. The hallways were calm as she walked, and the soft hum of the station felt comforting. When she reached the mirror room, she was surprised to see Taryn already there, examining some panels near the corner. He looked up and smiled as he noticed her. "Good morning," he said. "I didn't expect to see you here so early." "Good morning," Myra replied, smiling back. "I thought I'd explore a little before the day begins. The room feels different when it's quiet." "It does," Taryn agreed. "The mirrors reflect more than just light. They reflect stories, in a way. You can almost feel the people who were here before you." Myra's curiosity was piqued. "Stories?" she asked. Taryn nodded and motioned toward a section of the wall where a few panels were slightly loose. Sometimes, old records or journals were hidden behind these panels. People wrote about their experiences here, their thoughts, even their dreams. Myra's eyes widened. "Really? Can we see them?" Taryn carefully removed a panel, revealing a small stack of yellowed papers. Myra reached out, turning the first page gently. The handwriting was delicate, almost elegant, describing quiet moments in the mirror room, the people who had passed through, and the emotions they felt. Some were joyful, some wistful, and some spoke of a longing for someone far away. "These are incredible," Myra said softly. "It's like we can connect with people from the past, even though we don't know them." Taryn glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. I think that's the magic of this place. It shows us that human feelings don't change, no matter the time or place. People want connection. People want to be understood. Myra nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest. She thought of her own loneliness before arriving at the station and the quiet spark she felt when she first saw Terran. "Do you think that's why we noticed each other so quickly?" she asked, a hint of wonder in her voice. "I think so," Terran replied. "Sometimes, it's like a mirror not only shows who we are, but also who we are meant to notice." They spent the morning reading through the journals together, laughing at small stories and nodding at the serious ones. Myra learned that many visitors had experienced fleeting connections in the mirror room, friendships that began and faded, quiet moments of admiration, and even secret feelings that were never spoken aloud. Terran shared memories of his own time on the station, of repairs done in silence, of the satisfaction of fixing something small and watching it work perfectly. As they talked, Myra realized how much she enjoyed Terran's company. His presence was steady, calming, yet full of curiosity. She found herself leaning closer, sharing ideas and dreams she hadn't spoken aloud to anyone before. They discovered a shared sense of wonder, not just about the stars and planets, but about people and the connections that made life meaningful. When the morning lights shifted to the soft glow of midday, Myra paused. "I never expected to find stories like this here," she said. "Or to feel this." She gestured vaguely toward the mirrors, then met Terran's eyes. "It feels like the room itself brought us together." Terran smiled, his hand brushing lightly over one of the journals. "Maybe it did," he said softly. "Or maybe we just noticed what was already there. Sometimes, you have to see something to believe it exists." Myra laughed quietly. "I think I'm starting to believe." For a few moments, they simply sat in the quiet, surrounded by mirrors reflecting them in every direction. The room seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for something to happen. Myra imagined the countless people who had stood in the same place, feeling emotions that transcended time. She realized that, like them, she and Terran were beginning to write their own story. Before leaving, Terran closed the journals carefully and replaced the panel. "I hope we can come back," he said, glancing at Myra. "I hope so too," Myra replied, her heart light. "There's something about this place, it makes me feel like I'm part of something bigger. And I'm glad you're here with me." Terran smiled, and for a moment, they simply looked at each other, the golden reflections surrounding them like silent witnesses. Myra left the room feeling a quiet sense of wonder, knowing that the mirror room had shown her not only the stories of the past but the possibility of a new connection, one that might grow stronger with each passing day. The day had a gentle rhythm, and Myra found herself looking forward to seeing Terran again. She had finished her morning scans and reports, but the pull of the station and of him was stronger than her work. As she wandered down the corridor, she thought about their shared morning in the mirror room. The journals, the reflections, the quiet way they had talked, it all made her heart beat a little faster. Terran was already in the garden when she arrived, kneeling to examine one of the exotic plants. He looked up and smiled as soon as he saw her. "Good morning," he said. "I thought I might find you here." Myra returned his smile. "I was hoping I would find you too," she admitted. "The garden is calmer in the morning. It's easier to notice small things, like the colors of the plants or the way the sunlight touches the water." He nodded, and together they began to walk slowly along the winding paths. Myra felt a strange sense of ease, as if the station had narrowed down to just the two of them. The soft hum of machinery was comforting, and the bright colors of alien flowers seemed to make the world around them glow. As they walked, Terran began telling Myra about his work maintaining the station's systems. He spoke with excitement, his hands moving as he described the tiny components he repaired and the challenges of keeping the station running perfectly. Myra listened carefully, fascinated by how passionate he was about his work. She had always admired people who loved what they did, and she realized that Terran's dedication made him even more interesting to her. "And what about you?" Terran asked after a moment. "Do you always travel so far for work?" Myra laughed softly. "Not always, but this mission was special. I've studied planets before, but something about this one drew me here. And, it's not just the science. I like discovering the station itself, meeting people, and, well, noticing things I wouldn't see anywhere else." She glanced at him, feeling her heart flutter. "Like you, for example." Terran looked surprised but pleased. "Me?" he asked, a small smile forming on his lips. "Yes," Myra said softly. "I noticed you in the mirror room, and I've noticed you every time we've met since then. You make the station feel different, warmer, somehow." Terran's expression softened. "I've noticed you too," he admitted. "There's something about the way you look at things, the way you care about details. It's inspiring." They reached a small fountain in the center of the garden and sat on a nearby bench. The water shimmered in the artificial sunlight, reflecting soft golden light across their faces. Myra watched the ripples and then glanced at Terran. He was looking at the fountain, but she could see the quiet curiosity in his eyes. For a long moment, they sat in silence, simply enjoying the comfort of each other's presence. Then, Terran reached out his hand slowly, hesitating for a heartbeat before letting it rest near hers. Myra felt a thrill as their fingers brushed. It was a small touch, but it carried a weight she could not describe. She did not pull away, instead, she let her hand rest near his, feeling a warmth that spread through her chest. The mirrors in the station's halls often echoed reflections, but Myra imagined that if the mirrors of the garden could reflect feelings, they would show the growing bond between them. There was no rush, no pressure, just the quiet acknowledgement that something was beginning. "I like spending time with you," Terran said after a while, his voice low. "Even when we're not doing anything special, it feels right." Myra smiled, her heart lifting. "I feel the same. I didn't expect to find someone like you here, but I'm glad I did." The afternoon passed quietly. They walked through the station, helping each other notice little things, the way light fell on the walls, the patterns of stars visible from the observation deck, the subtle hum of the station's engines. Every shared moment added to a growing sense of closeness, and Myra realized that she looked forward to each encounter, small or large, with Terran. As the artificial evening settled over the station, they returned to the mirror room. The golden reflection seemed to welcome them back, multiplying their images in quiet harmony. They stood side by side, observing their own reflections, but also noticing each other. It was no longer just curiosity or fascination, it was a feeling deeper, gentle, and undeniable. Myra felt a quiet thrill at the thought that the mirrors had first brought them together, and now they reflected a bond that had begun to grow stronger with every shared glance and conversation. She glanced at Terran and realized that some connections, rare and unexpected, could appear even in the most ordinary moments, transforming them into something extraordinary. The morning began like any other, with Myra preparing her instruments for the day's observations. She had grown used to the rhythm of the station, and the quiet excitement of seeing Terran kept her spirits high. Yet, today felt different. A low alert buzzed through the corridors, a subtle vibration that made her heart tighten. Something was wrong with the station's systems. Rushing to the control hub, Myra found Terran already at work, his brow furrowed as he monitored the readings. "The main power grid is fluctuating," he said quickly. "If it fails, several sections of the station could shut down. The observation decks, parts of the labs, even the mirror room might lose its systems." Myra swallowed hard. "What can I do?" she asked, trying to steady her voice. She wanted to focus on the instruments she had brought, but the urgency made it difficult to concentrate. "We need to work together," Terran said. "I'll handle the main systems, and you can help with the monitoring equipment. If we coordinate, we can keep the critical sections running." For hours, they worked side by side. Terran moved with precision, adjusting circuits, rerouting energy flows, and checking every module with care. Myra followed his instructions, double-checking readings and making sure the scientific instruments stayed operational. The closeness that had felt comforting before now carried tension, their movements hurried and purposeful. Myra glanced at Terran once, noticing the way his dark hair fell slightly over his forehead, the lines of concentration around his eyes. She felt a pang of worry, not for herself, but for him. He was working tirelessly, and yet he barely acknowledged the fatigue he must feel. She admired his dedication, but the thought of anything happening to him made her chest tighten. "Take a moment," she said softly, placing a hand on his arm. Terran looked up, startled, and shook his head. "I can't," he said quickly. "Not yet. If we delay, more systems could fail. The observation deck, it's too important." Myra bit her lip and nodded. She understood, but she also knew that even small breaks mattered. They continued, their hands moving in rhythm, coordinating every step, every adjustment. Outside the control hub, the station hummed with tension. Lights flickered briefly, then steadied, and Myra could feel the invisible pressure of time pressing against them. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the alerts began to disappear. The system stabilized, the observation decks returned to normal, and the lights of the station glowed steadily once more. Myra exhaled deeply, relief washing over her. Terran leaned back in his chair, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We did it," he said, his voice low but relieved. He looked at Myra, and for a moment, the exhaustion on his face softened into something more human, more vulnerable. "You did it," Myra said, shaking her head slightly. "We both did it." Her voice carried a mixture of admiration and worry. She realized that today had shown her just how much she cared, not just about their connection, but about Terran himself. Later, Myra found herself walking to the gilded mirror room alone. She needed a moment of quiet after the rush of the morning, a place to think and to process the emotions swirling in her mind. The golden mirrors reflected her image, multiplied endlessly, and for a moment, she imagined Terran standing beside her, smiling softly as he always did. She realized then how much she missed his presence during the stressful hours, how much she had relied on his calm determination. The mirror room, which had once felt like a magical place of curiosity, now held a deeper meaning. It reflected not just herself, but her feelings, her longing for connection, her admiration, and the small flutter of affection she could no longer deny. As she traced her hand along the edge of one mirror, Myra thought about the day's events. The crisis had reminded her that life on the station was unpredictable, and that even in the midst of work, people could find themselves leaning on others in ways they had not anticipated. She realized that her bond with Terran had grown stronger not because of shared laughter or quiet conversations alone, but because of the moments when they faced challenges together. When Taryn finally arrived in the mirror room, she looked up, and their eyes met. There was no need for words. Myra could see the same relief, the same recognition, and the same quiet connection reflected in his gaze. Slowly, he stepped closer, and she felt her heart lift. "I thought I should find you here," Taryn said softly. "It's quieter. Easier to think." Myra nodded, smiling gently. "I needed a moment too. Today reminded me how much I care about you." Taryn's eyes softened, and he reached out, brushing her hand lightly. "I care about you too," he said. "More than I realized until today." For the first time, Myra allowed herself to lean into the warmth of his presence. The mirror room, with its endless reflections, seemed to hold witness to their unspoken bond. Today had tested them, shown the uncertainty of life, but it had also shown the strength of what was growing between them. And in that quiet, golden light, Myra realized that some connections rare and unexpected were worth holding onto, no matter what challenges came next. The station was quiet that evening, the soft glow of artificial lights reflecting off polished floors and smooth walls. Myra had just finished her data logs for the day, but her thoughts kept drifting to Taryn. Ever since the system crisis, her feelings had grown stronger, and the memory of their shared relief in the mirror room lingered warmly in her mind. She found herself walking toward that golden space once again, seeking its quiet comfort. When she arrived, the gilded mirror room was empty, its endless reflections glimmering softly. Myra took a deep breath, running her hand along the edge of one mirror. Each reflection seemed to whisper stories of the past, and yet tonight, it felt different, like the mirrors were waiting for something new to happen. "Good evening," a voice said softly behind her. Myra turned to see Taryn stepping into the room. He paused, his eyes meeting hers, and for a moment, neither spoke. The golden light of the mirrors reflected their images endlessly, multiplying the tension, the warmth, and the quiet anticipation between them. "I was hoping I'd find you here," Taryn said, stepping closer. "It feels right to be here with you." Myra smiled, feeling her heart lift. "I feel the same," she said softly. "I wanted to be here too. There's something about this room, it makes everything else fade away, at least for a little while." Taryn nodded, his gaze gentle. He took a careful step closer, and Myra noticed the small ways he mirrored her movements, as if the reflections themselves guided them together. "Myra," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something. Something I've been feeling for a while now." Her heart quickened. She had felt it too, the quiet pull, the growing warmth whenever they were together. "I think I know," she whispered. Taryn reached out, taking her hand in his. "I can't stop thinking about you," he admitted. "From the first moment I saw you in this room, I felt something I couldn't explain. Every day since then, it has grown. You've become important to me." Myra's chest lifted with relief and joy. "I feel the same," she said. "I was afraid it was only me, that maybe I imagined it. But I can't stop thinking about you either. I've never felt this way before." They stood close, hands intertwined, reflected endlessly in the golden mirrors around them. The room seemed to glow even brighter, as if celebrating their words. The quiet hum of the station became a gentle background to the warmth spreading between them. "I didn't know if I should say anything," Taryn continued, "because I didn't want to risk our friendship, or the connection we already have. But I can't pretend anymore. I care about you, Myra, more than I can say." Myra squeezed his hand, feeling a wave of happiness. I'm glad you did, she said softly. Because I care about you too. More than I realized until recently. You make this place brighter, even in the quietest moments. Terran smiled, a genuine, soft expression that made Myra's heart flutter. So, can we see where this goes? He asked, a hint of nervousness in his voice. Yes, Myra said, her voice steady. I want to see where this goes. Together. For a long moment, they simply stood there, letting their hands rest in each other's. The golden mirrors reflected not just their images, but the quiet beginning of something new: trust, warmth, and a feeling that went beyond words. The past, the present, and even the future seemed to exist in that small space, all captured in the endless reflections. Terran brushed a strand of hair from Myra's face, his fingers lingering gently on her cheek. I think this room is magical, he said softly, but not just because of the mirrors. It's magical because it brought us together, and now, it's part of our story. Myra laughed quietly, a sound full of relief and happiness. I think you're right, she said. And I think we'll make it part of our story for a long time. They leaned toward each other, and for the first time, they shared a gentle, tender kiss. It was soft, unhurried, a promise of connection and understanding. Around them, the mirrors reflected their joined hands, their smiles, and the quiet joy in their eyes. The gilded mirror room seemed to hold its breath, witnessing the beginning of their love. When they finally pulled back slightly, their foreheads resting together, Myra whispered, I never thought I could feel this way on a space station. Terran smiled, his voice low and warm. Neither did I. But here we are, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. They stayed in the mirror room long after, talking quietly, sharing stories, hopes, and dreams. Every glance, every laugh, every touch strengthened the bond that had been growing since their first meeting. Myra realized that the mirror room had been more than a place of reflection. It had been the space where two hearts quietly found each other, and where a new story was beginning, one they would write together. The days passed quickly on the space station, yet each one felt fuller, warmer, and brighter for Myra. The quiet hum of machinery and the soft glow of the lights were no longer background noise. They were part of the rhythm of life she shared with Terran. Their connection had grown deeper since that evening in the gilded mirror room, and every day they found new ways to enjoy each other's company. Myra often found herself returning to the mirror room, sometimes alone, sometimes with Terran at her side. Each reflection seemed to capture not just their faces, but the small, quiet moments they shared, a shared laugh, a glance, a gentle touch. The room had become a symbol of their bond, a private world where nothing mattered except the presence of each other. One morning, as the artificial sunlight filtered through the station's observation dome, Myra and Terran wandered together along the corridors. I think the station feels different when we explore it together, Myra said softly. Terran nodded. It does. Even the smallest corners feel alive. And somehow, it feels like we're discovering not just the station, but ourselves. They paused near a small observation deck, looking out at the swirling clouds and oceans of the planet below. The sight was breathtaking, but Myra found her attention drawn to Terran beside her. His calm presence, the quiet way he noticed details, and the gentle smile that often appeared on his lips made her heart feel light. I never thought I could feel so connected to someone here, Myra said, her voice almost a whisper. The station, the planet, all of it is amazing, but you make it even better. Terran turned to her, his expression soft. I feel the same, he replied. Being here with you, it makes everything clearer. I feel like I can do anything, as long as you're here. They held hands, their fingers intertwined, and for a moment, they simply stood there, enjoying the quiet of the station and the beauty of the planet below. Myra realized that their connection was no longer a secret, no longer a spark in the mirror room, it was a steady warmth that filled her days. Later, they returned to the gilded mirror room, their favorite place. The golden light reflected them endlessly, but this time, it also reflected a sense of contentment and hope. Myra looked at the mirrors and then at Terran. "Do you think this room will always feel magical?" she asked, smiling. Terran laughed softly. "I think the magic was never just in the mirrors. It's in us, in the way we care for each other and notice the small things. The room just helped us see it." Myra nodded. "You're right. It showed me that connections can grow in unexpected places. And I'm glad it brought us together." They spent the afternoon exploring more of the station together, discovering hidden corners, new views of the planet, and small nooks filled with unusual lights and reflections. Every discovery was more meaningful because they shared it, noticing the small details and laughing at little surprises. As evening approached, they returned once more to the mirror room. The golden reflections caught the soft light of the station, and for a while, they simply stood side by side, hands brushing, shoulders touching. Myra felt a quiet sense of gratitude. The station had given her work, adventure, and knowledge, but most importantly, it had given her Terran. "I think this is just the beginning," Terran said quietly, his voice filled with hope. "There's so much we can explore here, on the station, even out in space. And we'll do it together." Myra smiled, her eyes bright. "Together," she agreed. She reached for his hand, squeezing it gently, feeling the warmth and reassurance of his touch. The golden mirrors reflected not just their images, but the story they had written together, the quiet moments of connection, the challenges they had faced, the laughter, and the trust that had grown between them. The gilded mirror room had been a witness to the start of something extraordinary, and it seemed to glow softly in approval. As the station continued to orbit the distant planet, Myra and Terran remained close, exploring, learning, and dreaming together. Their bond was no longer fragile curiosity, it had become a quiet, enduring love built on trust, admiration, and the joy of shared moments. Myra thought about the days ahead and felt a calm certainty. Life on the station would have its challenges, but with Terran by her side, every challenge seemed manageable. The mirrors had once reflected strangers meeting for the first time, but now they reflected a partnership, a shared hope, and a love that could thrive even in the vastness of space. And as they stood together in the golden light, watching the station hum gently around them, Myra realized that the greatest adventure was not the planets, the stars, or the mysteries of space. It was the connection they had found, the quiet longing fulfilled, and the promise of a future they would share. The gilded mirror room had given them more than reflections. It had given them each other.